episodes now, which means it's a real podcast.
Yes.
So I'm
Does
very
it also mean
excited.
for each episode you get more people in? Because we're the second with 2 people now.
True.
So by
True.
the end, 10
Three
episodes,
episodes.
three
People. We had hard enough time coordinating like 4 of us today.
Too ambitious.
Yes. So today's episode, we are talking about coming back to climbing from an injury.
Or starting climbing.
Or starting climbing with an injury. Just
True.
climbing with an injury and just the mental health around that and our experiences. And yes, we have 2 lovely guests here today. Lisa and Jules. And we're going to talk about we're just going to have a conversation, I think. Yeah. Lex had lots of opinions on the last. We got lots of good feedback on the last episode, so we're going to try a bit more conversationally today around the table vibe instead of just like questions, you know?
Sounds good.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's start off with like why you're here. Jules, do you want to go first?
Alright. Okay, my story starts probably like almost 3 years ago now.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was leading at KP and I had a nasty fall between my first and second vault. Fell down and smacked that ankle into the rock real hard and had a really nasty ankle injury that just took a year and a half to fully kind of like get back to climbing from. Still actually recovering from it to this day.
You always recover.
Yeah, honestly, it's still a journey.
Friends.
But yeah, been back to climbing for longer than I was prior to my injury. So
That's exciting.
And stronger than before as well, right?
yeah,
You have
Yeah.
stronger now.
yeah.
Exciting so
Stronger.
well.
Thank you.
What about you, Lisa?
Well, why am I here? Because I had an injury previous to my climbing stuff.
Yeah.
I actually had an accident on a holiday. I had a little boat accident, which was fun, but I probably won't get into detail about that because that is a very long story. So if you're keen to hear it, you can approach me personally. I'll have to tell it. It's very James Bond-like, to be honest.
Very exciting.
It's a very exciting story. It actually took me 3 days to actually come back to Germany after that injury, which was fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the accident happened on Bali. I had to fly back home and it was all a bit dramatic. And I pretty much smashed my entire upper bit of the foot up to like the ankle. It was all broken into tiny pieces. And they kind of had to just smush it all back together, put a plate on it and hope it would grow back.
Stick.
Yeah.
Fix
And actually
everything.
I remember like right after the surgery.
Dodgy chair. Alright,
That will probably happen a couple more times.
Knew it.
Yeah, shout out to Connor and Rob for letting us use their house to record this, but the chairs require a lot of balance.
Fun. So after my injury, the doctors actually, like right after the surgery, they were like, oh, not even sure if you'll be able to walk properly and stuff. So it was all a bit like, we don't quite know what's going to happen afterwards.
Scary.
And so the whole recovery took very long. Probably took me 2 years to be like able to actually like walk properly and do a bit of sports and stuff like that. And that was the accident was in 2015. So it's quite a long time ago now.
That's so long.
And then I came over here, which was already, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after the accident. And I joined the club and thought I'd try climbing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So brave.
No.
I love how we all have ankle injuries.
Right?
That's so weird.
I said to Izzy earlier today, I was like, well, since Isaac's not coming today anymore because he was supposed to be here
Yes,
too.
Isaac was meant to be here as well.
I was like, we're just gonna have a special on
Ankle
ankle
clubs.
injuries.
Yes.
And then you're just gonna have like
Yes.
specials on upper body or fingers.
That's
and stuff
true.
Like that.
It could be
Sure.
on heart too.
Overuse injuries, right?
Yes.
Because I think I've had a few people on like.
I think a finger injury one would be really good.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody's had a finger injury.
Yeah, and I actually don't know how it happens, like and
You can
how
do
to
a little
prevent
bit-
and stuff.
You
It's
can
probably
do more to
good.
prevent that than you can something
Yeah.
like ankle injury.
My plan is to do an episode where we do injury prevention.
That's good.
For
Maybe we would have
injuries.
have Jules there again as our physio.
Yes.
Just need
We-
my upper limb skills, not
Yes.
my legs.
If you're a physio or have some sort of expertise in preventing climbing injuries, hit me up, please, to have you on the podcast. But yes,
What about your story, Gabby?
it's true.
Yeah.
We're all in it together.
We're all in it together.
What happened to you?
Well, great question, Lisa. I think it's about 14 months ago now. Yeah, I just took a similarly to Jules. I took a lead fall at KP.
We love KP.
We love KP leading. And
Everyone was
yeah.
picking on it, and I was like, I don't want to lead anymore.
It's lots of fun. It's just has some there's extra precautions that you need to take when leading a KP. Anyway, I smashed up my talus, which is an ankle bone at the joint, which has probably been the most difficult part of it. It's just that it's on the joint. Yeah, and I was like, I don't think mine was as bad as you guys's, but I was still in moon boot for 3 months. Crutches a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Crazy times. But I'm back top roping now.
Woohoo!
Yahoo!
Progress.
I actually took my first lead fall last week indoors.
Oh, was it?
So exciting.
It was it was very traumatizing.
Through the arch? Or was it like...
Yeah. It wasn't, but it was like I smashed my ankles into the wall.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'd like taken lead falls at Coolant before that.
Yeah.
But it was my first smashing ankle into the wall.
Yeah,
Fall.
that's a bit
The
hectic.
first fall.
The first fall.
Yeah. It took me... I was back leading for like 5 months before I actually took a fall on my ankles. I was just very, very cautious.
Yeah.
But I was absolutely petrified. And once I took that first fall, it like completely changed. So
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to,
Yeah.
like, as soon as I started bleeding, I made sure that I took a fall, just because I didn't want to, like, freak out if I
you
accidentally
need
fell.
that mental like reassurance that
Yeah.
you're not gonna die. You're not
Exactly.
gonna break your ankle. again.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
Hectic.
Heck.
But there were like
times.
some of the things that I was, because I didn't came from climbing. Like I had an injury and then was like, oh, well, I want to join a club. I always wanted to learn climbing, like since I was very little. But where I came from, there were like no climbing gyms, no clubs, nothing.
Yeah.
So there was never really an opportunity for me to do it. So when I came over here, we wanted to join a club to get to know people. So I was like, oh, I always wanted to learn climbing. Let's just check the climbing club out. But I wasn't sure if my ankle would handle it. Because like it's so, like some of my ankle parts actually stiffened up. Because like parts of the joint as well was broken and they couldn't fix it. So that bit is kind of stiff in there now. So like, especially balance stuff, my foot just can't do. Like certain movements are just completely stiff now.
Yeah.
And so I just wasn't sure if I'd be able to. Like, because they also told me, oh, well, don't go for runs, don't do dynamic stuff. Like all the doctors told me not to do all these things. So I was like, I'm not sure if climbing's gonna work.
Yeah.
So when I started, I was like, oh, I want to be fine with top roping. Probably nothing's really gonna happen. It's fine. But then I wanted to start leading, but all the time I wasn't sure. What if I actually fall? Is it just gonna break my whole thing again?
Yeah.
Like you just don't. When you had these injuries, you just don't know what's gonna happen if they actually get impacted a bit more than just walking or maybe jumping a little bit.
Yeah.
And once you've had an injury, your risk of redoing it again
Or
is
injuring
so
something
much
else.
higher.
to be
Yeah,
honest.
because
like,
you're
that's-
weaker.
And you compensate with other parts of your
Exactly.
body. So I'm more scared of hurting my knee or my hip or something than I am actually hurting the same ankle again, because like inherently I'm always going to be protecting this ankle.
I was doing my physio exercise the other day, and my like broken ankle leg is actually a lot stronger than my other leg now, because I've just been doing one leg exercises for a year.
Yeah.
Which it's crazy.
It's true.
Yeah. What was like the hardest part of your injuries, do you reckon?
So many things. So many things.
Where do we start?
Where do we start?
What about like the mental health side and like
Okay.
your headspace?
Yeah, so I had been climbing for maybe not even a year. But it was something that I found when I was kind of in a really confusing part of my life.
Yeah.
And it was something I really clung to. I was like, wow, this is amazing. It was like a super positive thing in my life. So when I lost it, that was pretty like heartbreaking, and I had no idea how to cope without it.
Yeah.
And yeah, my injury was super duper like uncertain, because I damaged the cartilage in my ankle, and cartilage has a really poor capacity of healing. You don't really know whether it's fixed or not after surgeries until like months down the track. So it's just a constant like, I don't know whether, you know, I'm gonna get back to climbing. I don't know whether like this is gonna get better or not.
Yeah.
It was just really up and down. I was on crutches for like a year. So
long.
couldn't do really anything physically other than like physio exercises, which I was
That's awful.
so over very quickly.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I guess just, you know, seeing all my friends and everyone else being able to climb and do all those active things, and not being able to be a part of that was really hard. And I kind of like just completely separated myself from climbing as kind of protecting myself, because I was like, I don't think I can be around people like this.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was a good thing or not, but it was what I thought was the easiest option.
Yeah.
Because it was just, really hard to see other people getting on with it.
That's so fair.
Yeah,
it's
it's probably natural, I think, if you like, you were so close to like progressing further and getting into your lead, and then you just get drawn back into like not being able to do anything, and you see all these other people go about their climbing and smashing stuff, and
it was
just
hard, like seeing all the people that had started when I had, and they were just progressing in their skills, and I was like, I wish I could be with them doing that.
But I think that's probably like a general thing in climbing. It's so hard not to compare yourself to the others, because you just see them around all the time, but it just doesn't help yourself. Like, there are always going to be people that start and just absolutely smash it, so just because they're natural talents or whatever, and you're just like, oh, well, I'm going to struggle on this for 2 years now, and they're just going to smash it. But it's just a hard thing to be like, then not compare yourself to others, but I think
and that's what Isaac said. We asked him if he had anything that he wanted to talk about today, and he said that comparing himself to other people is the hardest, and you forget sometimes, especially when you're in the healing process, that you are actually still injured, even though you don't look injured, and even if you don't always feel injured, you still are recovering always.
And it's not even comparing yourself to others, like comparing myself to my previous self. Like, that was probably the worst thing, was that like, oh, I used to be able to do all this, I used to be able to do that, I used to be able to walk, I can't walk anymore, I have no idea how to walk, like, you know, it's just completely contrast.
When we first tried to start walking, it sounds so weird, walking again.
We all can relate to this, like, learning how to walk again, you know?
First time trying to like put weight on my foot felt so strange. I was like, how do I do this? I had no clue how to like put my heel first and roll and stuff. It felt so unnatural. It was so weird.
It's so weird, like learning to do something that you just, you know, everyone does.
Never think about it.
Like, you don't think about walking, but learning to do those little things again, it teaches you a lot.
Absolutely.
And that was so horrible in the beginning as well. Like, I was walking so weirdly. I was like, what is this?
I know. I still walk weirdly.
Me too.
Yeah.
Never going away, I guess.
Yeah, never going away. I think I did the opposite thing to you did, Jules. I just threw myself into everything. I'm like, I'm still going to be a part of the cliffhangers. Nothing's going to stop me.
I'll just be social now.
Well, I went to Bruya in a moon boot on crutches. I walked into Point Pure down to Great Devoid on crutches in a moon boot because I didn't want to miss out on anything.
Dedicated.
I think it was more just a fear of not being left behind, like you were saying, and that was my way. Even if I was getting left behind physically, at least I wasn't. I was still part of it.
Supported the others. Watched everyone climbing.
Exactly, because climbing for me is a lot more. I do it more for the social and for meeting people and being a part of a community. Because like everyone's my best friends at cliffhangers, and I didn't want to lose them. Yeah.
And I mean, I still enjoy watching other people smash climbs as well.
Exactly.
It's just so fun watching other people getting on their leads and stuff as well. So I love, whenever we go on trips as well, I just love sitting around and watching other people smash stuff too. It's just cool.
Yeah.
Definitely in hindsight, I could see like it would have been beneficial to you know, stay in contact with people and come to social stuff more. I think I was just at a really bad point in my life where I was like,
It's
I
tough.
can't handle it. And
It's tough.
And I guess
Yeah.
probably everyone's handling those things
yeah,
differently.
you know, some people will
Yeah.
be able to cope with that and
Yeah.
it's fine. But
Definitely.
for
Yeah.
others, it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting how different people deal with it.
Yeah.
I think another thing I found really hard was not comparing myself to other people who have injuries, let alone like climbers. Because I would notice that I would be like, well, I've only got like 2 breaks in my talus, it's fine, I'm gonna be climbing in a year. Whereas other people like you two have had such worse injuries than me. But like whether you pull a tendon in your finger or broken ankle or smashed up your whole entire leg, it's still an injury, it's still tough, but different people react to it differently, different priorities in life.
Everyone heals differently.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
recovery is never the same between people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important. If you happen to be injured in the future and you would like some advice, that was going to be another one of my questions is, do you have any advice for people like who have been injured? Like, what's your number one thing that you would say?
Well, what helped me, like, right after the injury, like, I was just never thinking about possibilities of it's not going to work ever again or whatever. Like, I was always super positive about it.
I can imagine.
Just Lisa.
Actually, funny side story. I was in intensive care right after my surgery because I got a high fever, and because I came from Bali, they were scared I got like weird malaria or whatever weird stuff, and so I got shoved in like this intensive care, and they took like blood out of like every part of my body. It was going crazy, and I was just lying there, was like, what the heck is going on, guys?
Fine.
And so they walked in and were like, oh, well, yeah, the surgery was okay, but it looked a lot worse when we opened it all up, and like it was really hectic, and we had to get like get their like head surgeon guy in there to do it, because the guy who was supposed to do it was like, nah, I'm not gonna do this, I won't be able to fix it. So yeah, it was all very hectic, and then they came in and were like, oh, well, we're not sure if it's gonna heal well and if you're gonna be able to walk and stuff, but we'll see. And they were really scared that it would get infected, because I had all these like massive, like huge blisters. I've never seen that huge blisters in my life, and I had to cut them open, so literally my entire foot around it was pretty much an open wound as well. Very hectic. And so they were very worried, and I was just lying there, and I was the chillest person ever. I was super relaxed. I was like, oh yeah, guys, don't worry, I'll be
just a
fine.
foot.
But it was also weird circumstances since I came from Bali. I had seen the hospital there. It was all like a very weird situation, and like I was just happy to be back home and in like good hands, and I knew people would care about it the best way they could. So I was just super positive about everything. I was like, oh, it's gonna be fine, guys. You know what you're doing. I'll be okay. And so at some point, they actually took my parents aside and were like, well, we're a bit worried. It seems like your daughter doesn't quite understand how serious this injury is. Does she understand it's a serious thing? And my parents were just like, yeah, she does. She's just a very positive person. And so, I don't know, not everyone is like that, and I totally get that, but I think trying to stay as positive as you can and just believing in you'll be able to get it as good or the best way back as you can, and there are always more things you can do about it too. Like, I remember during my whole recovery thing, so many doctors were like, there's not really anything we can do anymore, but I just kept going to different physios and asked them if we could do more. And like, whenever I went back to get it checked from like previous doctors, were like, this looks so much better than like 5 months ago, what did you do? I was like, well, I just kept working on it. So I think probably my advice is just trying to stay as positive as you can and just keep working on it and trying to improve it.
Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up. I mean, it seems hard, and it might not, like, my foot's still not the greatest thing ever, and it still hurts sometimes and all that kind of stuff, but you learn to live with it, and you still, it's so impressive still what you can do with it. Like, I wouldn't have thought to be able to climb at all with it. And at the beginning when I started, I could barely put weight on it. Like, whenever I remember my first trip to Tinny, I tried to climb there, and I tried to, like, push weight on my left foot and just would give up.
Yeah.
It just like started shaking and breaking down. I just couldn't. I was like, what the heck? How am I supposed to climb?
Yeah.
And I think climbing actually made it even stronger.
Oh, for sure.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know. There are always so many things you can do. You just have to try and keep working on it and don't give up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I have a few things. Definitely just recognizing the ups and downs with recovery. Like, your path of recovery is not linear at all. Like, people say that and you're like, oh yeah, whatever. But like, when you're actually in it, like, honestly, you can go through weeks of just struggling so much with pain and not being able to do anything.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you might just have a breakthrough and you'll just be able to do stuff again and things will go up. Like, there'll be plenty of, like, you know, like plateaus in your recovery, but there's also going to be things that surprise you, and there's, like Lisa said, there's always things out there to improve.
You can do.
Yeah, like, I am almost 3 years post injury, and I've, you know, been at points where I was like, no, there's nothing we can do anymore. Like, people have told me, no, there's nothing more we can do. This is just how your ankle's going to be. But I've still done different things. So I see an exercise physiologist now, and that's helped, like, immensely with, like, being able to jump and stuff, which I couldn't do for like 2 years. There's always things you can do. Another thing would be to definitely just like gain perspective. Like, with your injury, I kept a journal like during my recovery, and it was really helpful to be able to actually look back on how I'd been feeling, like, you know, straight after surgery, in the weeks following surgery, and just be able to look back a few months later and be like, oh wow, I couldn't do this then. But now, but now I can do this. Like, I couldn't walk without like crutches before, but now I can walk with one crutch. Yeah. Like, you know, I'm still got a long way to go, but like, look at what I can do now.
Yeah. And
it's actually really nice to look back now, 2 years later. Yeah. And like 2 years ago this day, this is like what I was going through. And look at where I am now. Like, I've improved heaps.
So good.
Just recognizing, you know, the end goal as well. Like, just keep your eyes on the goal.
Eyes on the prize.
Exactly. You'll get there. It's just, it's not always clear.
And I guess you just have to be patient as well. It's just like with fairly bad injuries like we had as well, it's not something that can be fixed in a week or two. No. You just need to be patient with it, and I think then it actually helps, like, appreciating the small steps along the way, like just realizing, wow, I can walk again, wow, I can try and jump a little, that foot actually moves a little bit more, I'm not in that much pain anymore. Like, the small things I think are really important.
The small wins.
I remember I cried the first time I was able to walk down my stairs with like not a limp or like trying to, because my foot didn't bend enough to be able to walk down the stairs.
Oh, so you were turning?
I was turning the first time I walked down the stairs. I was just like, oh my god. It was so exciting. I think my number one tip is finding physio, exercise physiologist, whatever, a medical professional that works for you. I'm going to give a shout out to my physio, which is Lindsay Trigar Physiotherapy, and they have a gym attached to the physio, or the physio itself is a gym, and they offer a gym membership that's kind of supervised by physios. So I pay a certain amount a month to be able to go twice a week, 3 times a week, however many times I want, and do my physio exercises, because that was, I think, the thing I found the hardest is actually sticking to my physio exercises. If you do your physio exercises, like,
good on ya.
Good on you. You're insane. You're a psychopath. Like, no one does their physio exercises.
Physio student right here.
Well, Gabby, I only do them whenever I went to my physio.
Exactly.
Like, if I wouldn't go to my physio and she would do stuff with me, I would do them.
That was, Max is calling me.
Well, shout out to Max.
Shut up, Max. But yeah, that was the thing I found the hardest. So going to the physio twice a week and forcing myself to go made the world of difference for me, because I just wasn't doing them at all. And then I'd go to the physio and they're like, have you done your exercises this month? I'm like, have not.
Yeah, that like accountability. And just getting into that environment of, here's where I do my exercises.
Yes.
Yeah, like if you don't have an appointment, like, I'm going to meet my friends in the gym and climb, I think you have to do the same with your physio exercise. You have to be like, all right, this afternoon I'm going to have an appointment at the gym, or I'm going to set myself this hour and I'm going to do my exercise. Otherwise, you just don't make time for it. Yeah, and that's what happened to me too. Like, if I didn't have my physio appointments where I would go to, which I had 2 or 3 a week probably over 2 years, I guess, if I wouldn't have had them, I wouldn't have done anything. Yeah. And I wouldn't have been able to walk then, because physio was the one thing that really helped me the most.
Absolutely.
They make the world of difference.
Yeah, just recognizing yet when you do exercises, how do you feel afterwards?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, you know, it's helping? If so, keep doing them. If it isn't, talk to your physio about it. There might be different ways you can approach it. Like for me, I was not benefiting from physio after 2 years. So my physio was like, let's go see an exercise physiologist.
Yeah.
He'll be able to give you something else. And now I'm similar to you. I go to the gym twice a week and do like a full hour and a half
Yeah, me
of
too.
exercises. And it's like, oh, boom, done.
Yeah.
You know? And you see the results when you do them consistently.
Yeah, and they want to help you. Like, tell them your goals. Like, I always say, like, I have an appointment every month, and I'm just like, this week I would like to be able to jump off like a meter height onto the ground. That is my goal. That's what I'm going to be able to do. They're not climbers, my physios, so they look at me a little bit insane. It's like, look, my end goal is to be able to like fall like 3 meters and smash my ankles into the wall, and that's how I broke it in the first place. And they're like, is that like abseiling? I'm like, no, it's not like abseiling. Like, you're insane, but that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's my biggest thing. I might just check if Isaac had anything else.
But it's funny that actually, because like I obviously went to a physio back in Germany, but they actually worked similar. Like I remember my physio, she was doing like very personalized stuff with me as well. And I remember like over the summer, Lex and I would go inline skating a lot because we had like a really nice trail around a lake. So I was like, oh, you reckon I could be able to inline skate again? She was like, oh, well, we could try and do specific exercises with it. So we did like balance stuff for side things and all that. And then I actually brought them in and we tried like skating on one thing and all that kind of stuff. So it was really cool because she really like kind of focused on what things I wanted to try and improve and do as well, after obviously all the learn to walk and build up your muscles again. But so I think it actually helps going to like an exercise physio or whatever.
Yeah.
It's worth the money.
Yeah. Any good physio should be able to kind of assess what you need to do in your task. Like they'll be like, oh, can you demonstrate that for me? And then they'll try and replicate that with an exercise.
Isaac in his messages just talked about some like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. But he said it helped him to remember that he had to practically take 10 months off and start from scratch, and just remind yourself that you are injured. That's what we talked about before, I think.
Yeah.
I guess that's like a segue into like actually returning to climbing after an injury.
Yeah.
Like that's
You've got to remember that you are injured. You're not going to be where you are.
No,
like
starting from square one.
Yeah, it happens. You've got to deal with it. Yeah.
I remember when I came back to climbing, I did not trust my ankle at all.
No,
like it didn't hurt. It didn't like do anything. Whatever. But
it's
I was just like,
your body.
Like you just don't put weight into it. You're like, no, can't.
Yeah, I think I really struggled to trust myself as well because my injury was like a whole accumulation of things, but like I played a part in it, and I think it's hard trusting yourself again when you're the one that's caused this damage to yourself that you're not going to do it again. Even if you accidentally fall and it's just a fluke injury that just happens. That like climbing is a dangerous sport. Injuries are bound to happen at some stage, no matter how careful you are.
Exactly.
And there are always uncertainties that you can't control as well in climbing. Like you just have to have a hold breaking off and you're falling. It's just something that can happen that you just simply can't control. And then if something happens, we just have to accept that risk, I think, as climbers. But it's definitely probably going to have a higher mental effect on you if you had such an injury and trying to cope with it. I think it's probably even harder than dealing with the physical stuff. I think actually the mental stuff is probably even harder.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And definitely with the return to climbing, the mental stuff is what gets in the way. Like your body physically, you can compensate. Climbing is really good in that way. You've got 4 limbs. You can use, if you've got one dodgy limb, you can use your other 3. Like, like that's fine. But it's the mental. Trusting yourself. That you're not going to hurt yourself again.
And it's hard to, like, it's just something that you've got to
go
to therapy. Everyone that knows me is my life motto, and the way to solve every single problem is go to therapy.
That's very good advice.
Thank you. That's my solution to every single problem that you ever have. Getting back to climbing, go to therapy.
That's funny. In my rehabilitation, I had to go to a therapist as well.
Mm.
And after we were done, she actually told me, I think you actually made my day.
So positive.
Like, I walked in there and she was like, oh, so do you want to talk about the accident or whatever? And so we just briefly chatted about it. And I don't know, I think I was her first patient that morning as well. It was like 8 o'clock appointment in the morning or whatever. And when we were done, it only took like half an hour or whatever. And she was like, oh, well, thanks for the chat. You really made my day already. And I was like, you're welcome.
That's so Lisa.
So I'm not sure if I'd be the right person for therapy. I never really tried apart from that bit. But it seemed like I helped her more than she helped me. I don't know.
Probably not the normal case, but that's great.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, if therapy isn't for you, like, I think having friends, you have such a
support,
strong support system.
Yeah.
To get you through, and even like especially in climbing, because it's not a solo sport, like you need someone to belay you. Having people that know what you're going through, like I personally will not let anyone belay me on lead unless they know my situation, they know where my headspace is at, and they know what to do if I happen to start freaking out.
Because
it's a very
belaying
real
each other as
possibility.
well. Like we belayed each other quite a lot at the beginning
Yeah.
too. Jules and I was like, shall we try together? Sure. Just like you have this understanding of what's going on in the other one's mind a little bit.
And if they go like, I want to come down now, you're like, yeah, okay.
Sure. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, it's fine. We've all been there.
Definitely. Yeah, it's super nice having other people that can relate to your experience.
Yes,
Like,
it is.
This is, it's
Just
nice.
why
Like,
we
it
are.
sucks that we've had injuries, but it's nice that we can support each other.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Definitely.
Well, does anyone have anything else to add? I think
Probably not really.
if anyone has any questions, like feel free to let us know.
Yeah, you
We're
can
always
just message us
happy
as well.
to share our experiences, and like we're all still going through it. Like we're all still in the rehab
Still
process.
Living with these injuries.
Yeah. So we should do like a year later from now a rehab, see how we're going and check in.
Sounds good. I definitely will be here in a year, so don't worry, we can do it.
Well, we might end it there. Thank you all for listening / watching whatever platform you're watching it on. If you've got any suggestions, feedback, it is all welcome. I hope you enjoyed this new setup vibe. If you've got any requests for episodes, if you would like to be on an episode, let me know. And yeah, thanks guys for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. Done.
Good stuff, guys.